Today, somewhere on Earth is going to drop anchor in Jamaica, the third largest island of the Antilles, a land of majestic, tormented landscapes. In the north, there's more than 200 kilometers of coast open to the Caribbean rollers and the trade winds. The Jamaican mountains harbor an unspoiled world steeped in the strains of reggae music. Adam is a real powerhouse. He draws his energy from the most remote corners of the island. A veteran caver and tireless hiker, Adam likes nothing more than exploring the surprising treasures of his island. Howard, the river Rasta, lives in the Blue Mountains. Fisherman, farmer, and singer, he invites us into his world, a realm of dusky forests and bright mornings. Nakle came to Jamaica about 10 years ago. Born in Lebanon in the Middle East, he couldn't imagine his life without the sea nearby. From his war-torn homeland, he brought to Jamaica his passion for freediving.
Being in the water, it will reflect to me a little bit Mother Nature. Just being in this liquid that holds you, like a mother will hold you and have her arms around you. So it's an experience that that to me I cannot live without.
Jamaica is one of the largest islands of the Caribbean. Christopher Columbus landed on these idyllic shores in 1492. He discovered a wonderful island inhabited by natives, the Taínos. Jamaica, in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, was an ideal port of call for European navigators. This is a land of impenetrable valleys and mountains that reach to the sky. In the Taino language, Jamaica means land of wood and water. The island, furrowed by countless streams and rivers, is hidden by a dense, humid layer of vegetation. Far from the beaches swarming with tourists, we discover another Jamaica, mysterious and unexpected. Sometimes man and nature are perfectly in tune. Adam got up in the middle of the night. He has a 5-hour hike ahead of him and is aiming to reach the roof of Jamaica before dawn. Adam's in luck this morning. He's been doing this ascent to the island's summit at over 2,200 meters for more than 20 years. Adam can feast his eyes on the most breathtaking spectacle Jamaica has to offer.
It's magical, especially when you come up at night and you don't see the forest. You know, you're just focusing on the trail. And then when the sun comes up, as it is now, and the forest comes alive, it's a special place. It's a special place.
As Jamaica awakens, it's a call to adventure. Adam, alone on his mountaintop, can savor the light and sounds that drift up from the forest.
up here. You know, you feel that you can do anything, you can accomplish all. You know, when your head clears and you start to make sense of why you're here, you know, your purpose here. I'm a son of the soil, you know. It gets into your spirit, you know, whether you're up here in the mountains or underground in a cave or at the beach. I mean, the spirituality is, I think, all around. You just need to listen, you know, and you'll pick it up. Yes.
It was in these mysterious landscapes, where sky, sea, and mountain confront each other, that the myth of the Pirates of the Caribbean was born. In the 16th century, seafarers from the Old World landed on this tropical paradise that sometimes lapsed into a hell on earth. The coastline and waters off Jamaica are the theater of murderous boardings and bloody battles. Piracy rules the region. Hundreds of Spanish, English, French, and Dutch ships sail the warm waters of the Caribbean, their holds bursting with precious cargo and treasure. Pirates, freebooters, and buccaneers set up their headquarters in Jamaica. The island becomes a hotbed of piracy. The New World colonies of Spain are nearby, and Jamaica is on the route of the warships and trading ships that sailed these seas. Pirates like Blackbeard and the bloodthirsty Captain Morgan, the most famous of them all, were the masters of Jamaica. Morgan became a privateer, then was appointed governor. The island would make him a very rich man. Jamaica, in the heart of the Caribbean, was an ideal base, a pirate's lair operating under the skull and crossbones. Adam was born of a Canadian mother and Jamaican father, an artist inspired by the natural force and riches of the island. Adam has strong memories of his childhood where nature played such an important role. This nature that has shaped Jamaican culture into an authentic way of life and thinking.
Our culture is very, very vibrant, very expressive. You know, the people like to live as one with nature. So it's a very special place, it's a very magical place, you know, the energy here, not only in the environment, but in the people. Very strong, very powerful. And that makes us Jamaicans.
Adam is going to meet up with his friend Wayne in the thick of this dense vegetation. Wayne is taking part in a study organized by American scientists on the king of the forest, the Jamaican yellow boa, an endemic species.
Many times I've dreamt about it at night as a little boy, wanting to explore the forest like the early adventurers.
A number of boas were fitted with miniature radio transmitters, and Wayne has to localize them in order to study their movements, their habitat, and their hunting grounds. When it comes to homing in on the invisible king of the forest, no one is better than Wayne.
If I turn it this way, I don't get any signal at all.
Normally,
In this direction, I get a signal, but it's pretty weak.
pretty much low.
So the snake is not down there. It must be higher up.
Up the hill here.
It's pretty close.
Could be anywhere around here.
Yeah, it could be anywhere.
Hey!
You see him?
I see him. He's stretching out.
See him stretching out
He's
like
moving now.
I can see him breathing.
See him head over
Yeah,
there.
you see him over there?
Two
You can see the little eyes.
Head over there, so... This is it, I thought it was... Yeah.
So how many times have you found her?
I found her several times, but it's been about 2 months now since I've seen any boas at all.
In the, what we're tracking.
With all this data collected, they'll learn more about the territoriality of the Jamaican yellow boa, and so be able to protect it. This boa doesn't need a vast amount of space to hunt, feed, and reproduce, but still we have to grant this endangered species the place it deserves in the forest. Adam is going to plunge even deeper into the heart of his island, beyond the last roads and villages. Cockpit country is a world apart, secret, nearly inaccessible. There are thousands of caves here, most of them yet to be explored.
Here, we're just on the periphery of the cockpit country, entering it now. I mean, if you look, you can see the conical hills starting, the big limestone massives. This is the beginning of it, of the primary forest.
Cockpit country is a wilderness. It looks like a myriad of giant tortoise shells. As far as the eye can see, thousands of limestone hills worn smooth by time. This is Jamaica's last virgin territory. Millions of years of erosion have carved out this unique landscape populated by rare plant and animal species living side by side. Cockpit country has another name in the form of a Creole saying, "Mino sen you no come," a clear warning that strangers are not welcome. This is the entrance to Potu Hole. This cave has a special place in Adam's heart. Adam discovered this shaft with a friend one morning in 1994. The two cavers began exploring this previously unknown cave, a special moment in a man's life. Potuhol had a surprise in store for them, and Adam will never forget that day. Even today, he's one of the rare cavers to visit Potuhol. Its entrance is 30 meters below ground.
I am in another world. Even though it's, people think it's scary and it's a hard sport, but it's so rewarding. You feel you're at one with the earth, it's a bonding takes place. When my friend and I came back here to explore the cave, we felt, yes, we are the first, only to discover these magnificent drawings that have been here thousands of years before us. So we were not the first. And it was a very humbling feeling. We felt small, but at peace and in awe, A little scary too, but it was a very emotional experience. My passion really started from reading books and seeing these wonderful pictures of caves around the world. I must have been about 10. I read a little National Geographic magazine of a little boy in France who slid down a hole with the candles and discovered these beautiful carvings and pictures of bison and animals from back in the Ice Age. That story inspired me so much. I wanted to find my own. And ever since then, I've been exploring caves.
Thanks to Potuhol, Adam's dream has come true. This is his underground lair, where he's directly connected with his own history. And this is what he discovered that first time.
These drawings were done by the Taino Indians, the first inhabitants of Jamaica, thousands of years ago. When Columbus came here, he found them here. They were here living on the island. You couldn't help but think what life must have been like then, what brought them down here, to what religious meaning do these drawings have. So it is still open for interpretation, but I believe it's a religious site. I love the nature in Jamaica. It has so much to offer. It's pristine. It's beautiful. You really get to feel at peace when you're out in the environment with nature. It's a very special place. I've been to other countries and other islands, and I always want to come back home. And not just because I'm Jamaican, but the diverseness of the place. You can be 2,000 meters up and then at sea level in a matter of an hour. So the sun, the sand, the sea, and the mountains and the rivers, everything is packed together in one little island.
In the Blue Mountains, the streams and torrents have only a few kilometers to go to reach the sea. This is where Swift River takes its source. Water and forest marry to open a path into a peaceful realm where time alone passes. Howard is the Swift River Rastaman. Here in this valley that looks like a sort of fantasy Eden is where he was born 40 years ago. The Rastafari culture carries the weight of slavery and the memory of the men and women torn from their African homeland.
For we is African glory. Emperor Haile King Selassie I grow why. No need them tell lie them Babylon story. Yes, Rastafari, then see we are no know we.
In the 1930s, Jamaican blacks turned their hopes to Africa. Haile Selassie had just been crowned emperor. King of Kings, Selassie claimed to be the direct descendant of the biblical kings Solomon and David. For the Rastafarians, he was a living god.
And the dish run away, yes, with the spoon. Yes, Bobby Rang, yes, me know you well do. Come in a file, I is coming soon. Conscious lyrics and we dep on the move. Yes, Rastafari, we know we I prove. Rastafari no got nothing to lose. No way.
Rastafarianism is rooted in these valleys shrouded in clouds that are dispersed by the winds every night.
And I say, them say we are no way. For we is African glory. King Haile, King Selassie, I go away.
Howard has been living in these mountains for 40 years. He lived for a while in Kingston, the capital, but he remembers that as a time of frustration. In the city, bullets fly, making shadows in the sky. Why keep walking the dusty streets when the forest can give you what you need? Living on the banks of the river, Howard has salvaged a part of his childhood happiness.
Well, my first memory at the river is right here, where I'm sitting now. My mom sent me to fill the water, and I see the raft, and I go on the raft, and I pitch off and wet up my clothes. So we go home, you know, and they say, "What's your drop?" So, "Oh, we wet up rafting." Yes, so that's my youthful days, I remember at the riverside, until now. The stream is like when the river came down, it's like you hear a stream, like somebody playing music. You hear the stone go boom, boom, boom. Lots of kids afraid of it, but we don't afraid of it because we know what it's all about, because the river come heavy. And when the river come heavy, no one can cross over it. Neither the bird want to fly over it so easy because she is very terrible. Jamaica is a central place of the earth because we're surrounded by water. And this is like a ship. Jamaica is just like a ship to me because it's just a small island still, but it's very solid, you know. So I know, say, it's a blessed place. I was born in the hills. I'm just a part of nature. That's why I born in the hills. If I was not a part of nature, I would born in the hospital or somewhere, you understand? So I have to born where the nature is. So I love nature. So I communicate with nature, nature communicate with me. Sometimes I sit down and I say, oh, I need something from the bush. I go and dig a piece of yam and cut a banana or a planting, yeah, and come and cook. And that's natural from nature.
Howard, the Swift River Rastaman, has a very simple mystical relationship with the natural surroundings of his birthplace. In the Rastafari culture, the earth produces plants and food. It allows the tree of life to thrive and people to progress on a spiritual path.
It's raining. We have to catch fish, but there is no fish today. But I hope we catch some.
The force of life and the spirits hover over Swift River. Howard respects the past and carries his destiny in his heart like an unshakable force. For 3 centuries, Jamaica prospered thanks to its sugarcane plantations, where tens of thousands of slaves toiled. The Blue Mountains, Howard's Mountains, were their refuge when the first slave revolts broke out. The slaves that escaped from the plantations were called Maroons. They were perfectly at home in this steep, inhospitable terrain where white men dared not venture. The Maroons set up self-sufficient communities in the eastern part of Jamaica. They were fearsome, invisible warriors. The wars, which lasted over 150 years, would eventually free thousands of men and women from their shackles. At the end of the 18th century, there were 300,000 slaves in Jamaica. Almost nothing remains from that period. In the heart of the Blue Mountains, only the stories linger on. In the Swift River Valley, near Howard's place, there's a ruin lost in the forest. The villagers call it the slave's house.
These people, they work so very hard to be what they want to be, you understand, and to survive. So they will do anything to create a house just to have their shelter and to get away from the certain trouble, because his trouble was all around, you understand? So they want to get away from certain trouble, so they bring themselves and hide themselves up here, you know?
This evening, Howard is waiting for the darkness of an almost moonless night.
Yeah, it's a good night for fishing because there is no rain and the sky are very blue, so beautiful. So and the water is nice too, but it's a little bit chilly, but don't mind. From you go inside the water and you get warm and used to the water, you don't feel cold again.
Howard can pass entire nights wading up the streams that feed Swift River. He could name every corner of his valley. He's scouting for what nature has to offer. With his bamboo torch, he's on the lookout for the slightest movement in the water. He's looking for little glowing red dots, crayfish eyes. Howard never sells his catch. Like all Rastafarians, he takes only what he needs. Fishing means, above all, communion with the river. This is what gives meaning to his life.
When you feel lonely and you want some company and there is no friends around, you can come to the river because you have lots of friends. Because you could hear the rolling of the river and the sound. It's like lots of friends talking, you understand? So if you go to the deeper part of the water, it's silent. But if you come to where the stone is, it's like lots of people. Because the water just rushing between the stones, you know, and making that beautiful sound.
Free diving is not your ordinary sport. You have to dive and hold your breath for long moments. For Nakle, this is like playing a piece of music written in his soul. People always want what they don't have. They dream of exploring the ocean floor and breathing seawater instead of air. After a 3-minute dive at a depth of 30 meters, it's time to surface and come back to the world.
Water is so important in our life that we cannot live without, whether it is to drink it or to enjoy it, whether in the sea or the river. And I work all around the island, and when I get the chance to go in the water, I will. And sometimes I will come here just to be in the wild and listen to the river. Just hearing and being in the water, it's just a relaxation for me, personally.
When Nakley gets the urge to reconnect with the earth, all he has to do is leave the beach and head up this river. Water is his element, and it flows everywhere here in Jamaica.
I feel very safe underwater more than on the road or in bed. Underwater, I feel like the safest. Although for certain people, it's something that is very dangerous. But to me, I feel very safe. That's why it's a need for me sometimes. It's a refuge. Like I will go, it's a refuge just to have your moment with nature and connect with it.
At some point, all children wonder what's on the other side of the sea. Ever since the dawn of time, people have crisscrossed the ocean, searching for adventure, and sometimes in hope of a better life. It was the chaos of war that brought Nakley to Jamaica about 10 years ago. He and his family had to flee their native land, Lebanon. He went to Europe first, then spent a few years in Canada before dropping anchor in Jamaica. The forests, the rivers, the people, the sea, he was captivated by it all. The Caribbean has given meaning to his life. Jamaica has given him a peaceful new life with the local fishermen and his musician friends.
We're struggling to survive. Well, we're my family, means the world. So we fight to stay alive now. First you rock me to sleep. The rock coming like an earthquake, Lord.
From I'm very young, I was brought in really in the sea. And my father used to take us to the sea, and we have learned so much from it that is part of our life now. It's a passion for me. I don't think I can live anywhere far from the sea. I have traveled a lot, and it's part of my life, part of my passion, that is a need for me to go. For me, I have to concentrate into listening to what my body tells me. Everybody I go to the sea, it's an experience, a new experience. So I'm just looking forward to go in the water, but at the same time I have to relax myself because it's a sport where you need to relax and you need to concentrate on all your body, because in the water it's a different thing. It's very important that you have a connection with the water. You understand, you can feel the vibration of the water, listen to the wind, listen to the sea. It's very important because to me it's a passion, and the only way you feel comfortable in that environment is that you really relate to the water. When I dive, the whole experience starts from I set my mind into going to sea. And then when I'm in the water, it's a different world. Being in the water, it will reflect to me a little bit Mother Nature. Just being in this water, that is this liquid that actually holds you, like a mother will hold you and have her arms around you. So it's an experience that to me I cannot live without. Sometimes I close my eyes. I am in sense of everything that is happening around me. Just gliding through the water, diving down, looking at the floor, at the sea floor, the fish. Everything, it kind of talks to me in a way that I'm looking and I'm seeing like traffic and a lot of things going on where people don't really realize such a life. And this feeling, it's fulfilling for me. And this is what I'm always in search.
Free diving is an inner voyage. Holding his breath for long periods allows him to leave the worries of the world behind. Baudelaire speaks of the alliance between man and sea. Man, no one has sounded the depths of your being. O sea, no person knows your most hidden riches. How strange the secrets you preserve so jealously. Diving is a rendezvous with solitude. Here, the sky and sea stretch to infinity, which gives a different perspective of the world around us. They both attract people with a thirst for adventure and the absolute. For Nakle, the sea is a strict taskmaster who doesn't tolerate complacency. He knows that it's not easy to come to terms with it. Nakle is a child of Lebanon uprooted by war. In Jamaica, he has made a new life for himself through his encounters with nature. The sea still nourishes him as on the day he was born. He draws his life-sustaining force from it. Jamaican fishermen are among the Caribbean's poorest. Not far from Kingston, there are even fishermen who take to the sea without a boat. Bart is 2 miles out at sea. He's been letting himself drift since daybreak. Nakle often meets him when he's out diving.
Hey, Nakle, how are you doing?
How are you doing, buddy?
Not too
So
bad.
what you're doing now?
I caught 2 fish.
Catching 2 fish. So you're using your fins to balance yourself?
Yes, it's my engine.
Engine, that's the engine.
Most of the time before we come, we check the
Before going out, I check the weather report on the television.
So you know the weather on face before you come.
If it's good, I come out. If it's too bad, I don't come.
Okay. As soon as we have life jacket.
I don't have a life jacket.
Today now we just have
A
shark.
boat dropped me off.
Lift drop me off.
It'll be back this evening.
Soon come pick me back. So when the pick
There
me
are
up,
2 of us. We watch out for each other.
So if you film two
If there's a problem, we help each other out.
one person come for me.
Nakle's passion for the sea has also given him a vocation. For 5 years now, he's been working for a humanitarian organization that finances the construction of fishing boats for the island's poorest fishermen. For him, it's a way of giving back to others what the sea has given to him.
When you start to work with the fishermen, you actually start to come close to them, to the family, to the community, and you start to integrate yourself, and they start to look on you differently and listen to you and learn from you. And you learn from them a lot and the lifestyle that they have, because the most important part that we're doing is actually improving their livelihood through fishing, sustainable fishing. It's very emotional to me because I love the sea and I love the people, and we're trying to make the 2 of them work in a way that 2 of them can survive and have a better future.
Nakle, with his organization, has been working with 17 fishing villages. They have financed the construction of 78 boats, quite a little fleet.
If you can see the yellow and blue boats, those are part of the project of Food for the Poor. We come here and give them training in sustainable fishing to improve their livelihood. And part of the project also we installed a solar light, as you can see, this light. So they have solar system here. In the night they have lights before they go to sea or when they come into sea at night.
Nakle and the Jamaican fishermen have a common mission: fishing with respect for the environment and humankind, a vital issue for all the island's inhabitants.
Used to be was a place full of love and harmony, and I pray that it'll come back to town. I know no more bullets fly, making shadows in the sky. Tonight in Kingston town, oh no.
Today, somewhere on Earth is going to discover the Azores in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Everyone has heard of the Azores anticyclone, named after these volcanic islands that emerged from the depths of the sea. Mauro, a young sailor who lives in Flores, braves the severe winter storms. Joao has chosen to live in São Miguel between sea and sky. He's fascinated by the sea and has now become an enthusiastic paraglider. Whenever he gets the chance, he spreads his wings and soars above the volcanoes. Nilton is the man of Pico. His island is the most impressive of the Azores. It's the roof of the archipelago. From this mountain peak, Nilton can feast his eyes on the immensity of the Atlantic through a sea of clouds.
When I climb up here to the summit, I don't think about anything. It empties my mind totally. It's just the sky, the silence, and the mountain. I forget everything else. I feel totally at peace.
The Azores. Most people are familiar with the name, but would have a hard time locating them on a map. The Azores are not really Europe anymore, but not yet America. This Portuguese archipelago, a long way from any continent, is made up of 9 islands, lost out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. A trip to the Azores means entering into a different dimension of time and space. The geological history of these islands is quite complex. Each one of them is a testimony to the incredible seismic activity begun millions of years ago. In the beginning, there was water and fire. These volcanic islands form a fantastic bridge between the sky, the earth, and the sea. Somewhere out in the Atlantic Ocean, the archipelago of the Azores thrust up into the air and the light. In the extreme west of the group are Flores and Corvo, the smallest and most isolated islands of the Azores. For centuries, they have remained separated from the rest of the world. Mauro is the captain of the Santa Iria, the boat that does the regular run between these 2 westernmost islands. His small coaster is a vital link for the inhabitants of Corvo. Freight is transported by sea between the islands. Mauro was born into a family of seafarers. He's doing the same run between Corvo and Flores that his grandfather did more than 60 years ago.
First off, if I didn't have such a strong attachment to the sea, to the nature here, to this island, and to the people here, I wouldn't have such a strong desire to stay here. I don't know. I probably could live somewhere else, but only if I really had to. I could adapt to somewhere else, but I would never leave this place of my own free will, not for anything in the world.
The story of how these islands were discovered remains steeped in mystery. Very old sea charts indicate bits of land marked Atlantis. But the official history is that the Azores were discovered in 1427 by Diego de Silves, a Portuguese navigator who had set out to discover the New World. According to an age-old legend, the Azores are all that is left of the mythical continent of Atlantis after it sank beneath the sea. And what if Atlantis, that utopian world, did in fact look like these islands? This is the home of the well-known Azores anticyclone, a high-pressure zone that influences the weather of all of Europe. In winter, the islanders have a front-row seat on the great meteorological phenomena. Here, sea and nature do their worst. And the island of Flores, in the front line, bears the full brunt of the Atlantic's storms. The island's harbors provide very little protection from the lashing sea. All the boats have been beached to keep them out of harm's way. All except one, the Santa Iria. Before nightfall, Mauro, the captain of the boat buffeted by the angry sea, will lock horns with the elements.
We can't beach the boat. This boat has to go to Corvo twice a week. So we don't have the time to get the Santa Iria on dry land. And that's why she has to stay in the water.
The Santa Iria's mission is bringing supplies in for the families on Corvo. What's an easy run in good weather becomes a dangerous expedition in conditions like these. The Santa Iria is stuck in port. It's impossible to sail.
I dropped 4 anchors and 6 or 7 mooring lines on the bow and 4 on the stern, 2 on either side, because the waves are hitting us head on, in line with the port. There's no way we would get any sleep anyway. We'll spend the night here checking the lines, and we'll keep an eye on the sea to see if it gets worse or not.
By nightfall, they've made the boat as secure as possible. Now, the only thing they can do is cross their fingers and hope for the best. The worst of the storm is still to come. The night promises to be very trying for the captain of the Santa Iria. The jetties are ineffective against the raging storm. It seems as if the angry sea is trying to swallow up Santa Cruz, the main city of Flores.
The door's stuck. We can't get it open. We want to get the car out of the way, but we can't. The tide's coming in. The waves are going to keep getting higher. It's getting worse. In an hour, it'll even be worse. More wind. Normally, it should calm down by tomorrow. Normally.
The Azores are exposed to the full brunt of the storms. Out in the middle of the Atlantic, there are no obstacles to stop the swell and waves. All during the winter, low-pressure systems are born along the east coast of North America and sweep across the Azores to end up in the sky of Europe. It takes 4 or 5 days for a storm to cross the Atlantic from west to east. Ever since the dawn of time, the Azores have been at the heart of this meteorological phenomenon. Here in the port of Lajes, the wind has increased a notch. Mauro has come to check that the Santa Iria's lines are holding fast.
We're sheltered for the moment because the winds are in from the southeast. It's bad, really bad, and it's going to get worse. During the night, the wind is going to shift in this direction. And I have to make sure the lines will hold. The boat is going to pull on this line when the wind shifts. We're okay for now. I can't get on board at night. It's too dangerous. It's even dangerous right here. The waves could get worse tonight. The only thing I can do is keep a close watch. Stay alert. And that's all. We're protected by the church. It wards off the bad weather. All the churches face the sea, so there's always someone watching over us.
All through the night, the island is lashed by the wind and rain. At daybreak, the little mountain cascades have swollen into powerful torrents gushing from the cliffs. Battered by the raging forces of nature, Flores is suffering the worst storm of the winter. For more than a week now, the land and sea have been facing off in a violent clash. There's no more sky, no more sea. Here, out in the middle of the Atlantic, life has come to a standstill. Under these conditions, the inhabitants of Flores stay holed up in their homes. They hunker down and wait for the calm after the storm. The Santa Iria has weathered the storm. Another ship joins it in the port. The Setsidach, the largest freighter in the Azores, has a stopover of a few hours here. It ships goods between the 9 islands of the Azores. The containers have to be offloaded very quickly. The dockers have only a few hours to carry out their task. The lull in the weather won't last long. After days of waiting, the crew gets busy on the deck of the Santa Iria. The sea has become calm, but the young Captain Mauro is still worried. The storm has caused a heavy swell. In these conditions, docking maneuvers in the port of Corvo can prove quite dangerous.
I love the sea more than anything. I like everything about this island. The peace and quiet. The people. My family. It's so peaceful. I like everything about living on Flores. It's a wonderful place to live. I'll never leave.
In the Azores, the islanders are used to the storms, and everyone has learned to live with them. No one tries to strike a bargain with the sea. This winter, Corvo was cut off from the rest of the world for 20 days. Joao grew up on São Miguel, the main island of the Azores. His childhood, spent on his grandfather's fishing boat, gave him an unbounded love of the sea.
It's simple. I come from a family of seafarers. My grandfather was a fisherman, and the sea played an important role all through my childhood. My uncles were divers, so I, of course, was drawn to diving, snorkeling, and spearfishing. I learned scuba diving. Then, I began to work at the university as a marine biology technician. Over the years, the sea has come to play a central role in my life.
A few years ago on these cliffs here, Joao's life changed completely.
As soon as my feet left the earth, I was swept up by the sky and became totally hooked. The day I discovered paragliding, I fulfilled the dream of all mankind, to fly. And once in the air, there's absolutely no limit.
Flying. For Joao, it has become as necessary as breathing. It's his gateway to the realm of the sky and nature. The sparrowhawk is the symbol of these sea-bound lands. And in fact, it was the vast population of these birds here, which the settlers called Azores, that gave its name to these islands. Joao is 52 and soars over these islands all year round. Even so, they still have surprises in store for him. The sky, the land, and the sea. The Azoreans live surrounded by nature, which they protect and respect. The sperm whale is the lord of the Azores. The whalers here hunted this legendary animal until the late 1980s. The Azores still live to the rhythms of the whale migrations. All year round, there are whales passing through the waters of this mid-Atlantic archipelago. Each island is an underwater sanctuary. Up until the end of the 19th century, American whaling ships would come here to hunt sperm whale. The captains would take on the young Azoreans, who were excellent sailors and skillful, tireless whalers. Whaling in the Azores is now a thing of the past. Once the golden age of whaling ended, the fishermen turned to tuna and bonito. Ever since these islands were first inhabited, the ocean has been a food locker. The fishermen joke that any rank beginner can come and catch as many fish as he ever dreamed of. They still fish the old way, with a pole and a line. In the 20th century, once the American ships left, the Azoreans hunted the whales with harpoons and longboats. Traditional whaling was a fair fight. The combat between man and beast lasted for hours. In 1986, the International Whaling Commission passed a worldwide ban on hunting sperm whales. The Azoreans will never again hunt the king of the oceans. These images of the past are part of the history of the Azores. They are engraved in Joao's memory. He was 20 at the time.
Years ago, when they'd hunt whales at San Miguel, the water would be red with blood. All the whale blood and remains would flow down the slipway and back into the sea. As the current carried it off, it would form a swath of blood, and that would attract great white sharks. This is a great white shark the fishermen caught 2 miles out from the port of Villafranca. That's me in the picture. The white shark was over 5 meters long. It was enormous.
The fishermen of São Miguel are back in port after 12 hours at sea. This is one of the last fishing trips of the season for these men. They've made a pretty good catch. The bonito season in the Atlantic is drawing to an end. The tuna, the main source of revenue for these fishermen, won't be back in the Azores for several months.
We Azorians have a strong bond with the sea, like all the Portuguese. For fishermen and navigators, it's a genetic heritage that's been handed down from generation to generation. We are a people of the sea.
This morning, Joao is heading for the northeast point of São Miguel. It's a wild spot, even more isolated than an island.
Nordeste has always been known as the 10th island of the Azores. The people here remind me of my childhood and my grandparents' village. It was a place where nobody had to lock their doors. The people are very friendly here, hospitable. It's a place where you're always welcome.
As soon as the conditions are right, Joao grabs his paraglider and takes to the air. He's planning to spend a few days here on the Nordeste point. It's a breathtaking, timeless setting. This simple little village, no more than a jumble of cabins, is happy home to the families of the northeast region.
O peixe está a morder como é? A pescaria. Está a dar aí com esse mate todo. Então, bem, boa tarde.
His friend José's cabin makes an ideal base camp for Joao. Not very big, but the real appeal of this spot lies elsewhere. The Arnell Lighthouse is perched out at the ends of the earth. There are always 2 keepers living here. The conditions are not ideal for paragliding today, but a window of good weather could open up in a few hours. Here in the heart of the Atlantic, it's possible to enjoy all 4 seasons in a single day.
Here on San Miguel, as in other parts of the Azores, you feel like you're far removed from the civilized world. mainly on account of the silence. There are very few people. All through the Azores, you can find these little patches of true paradise. You have a feeling of freedom, almost of abandon. You're alone on the cliff. The only things to keep you company are the lighthouse and the sound of the sea. It's natural for us to live here. Nature is in our blood here in the Azores. The territory is so small that if we ruin it, we'll suffer the backlash. I broke my spine. I had 6 fractures on just one vertebra. They had to take some bone from here to put it there. I had to have a spleen operation. I cracked my head open. I had a compound fracture of the tibia. I fractured both heels, and all that in a single accident. These tattoos are my passions. Sharks, my trip around the world with a stopover in Polynesia. Here's my guardian angel for paragliding. And there's room for lots more to come. Right now it's blowing at about 18 kilometers an hour with gusts up to 22. Not great flying conditions, but it'll do. I'm gonna go for it. People that fly are often asked what they feel. It's hard to explain. Me, I feel this well-being when I fly. Even if I'm having personal or professional problems, you get this liberation of your thoughts. You're alone with yourself. There's just the wind, the birds. You enjoy the landscape. No 2 flights are ever the same. It's a mixture of feelings. It's like breathing.
In a few days, Joao will be heading for the Himalayas. He's already sailed around the globe. Now he's going to fulfill another dream, to spread his wings on the roof of the world. The island of Pico is the most extraordinary, the most bewitching, the most majestic of the Azores. It's the Black Island. Its cliffs are bordered by vast stretches of lava. The craggy teeth of basaltic rock, as sharp as razors, thrust out into the ocean. They look positively frightening. Nilton, like many young islanders, could have let himself be lured away by the bright lights of Lisbon. Yet, he has never been off his island. Nilton has remained close to nature.
The contrast between the black lava and the color of the waves, the power of the sea, all this energy. It's really majestic. Only an islander understands just how much you can miss the sea when you're away from it. When I'm here, with all the energy that the sea is giving off, it makes me wonder what the eruption of the volcano must have been like, some 300,000 years ago. Well, of course I wasn't here for that, but it must have been grandiose. A volcano that thrusts up out of the sea. It must have been overwhelming. I would have liked to have seen that.
The island of Pico is situated at the junction of the Eurasian, American, and African tectonic plates. Pico has a unique place in the geological history of the Azores. The volcano is a nearly perfect cone. It's the highest peak of the Azores, culminating at 2,351 meters above the Atlantic Ocean. Pico is a fantastic link between sky and earth. In this boundless landscape of volcanic rock, the island of Pico jealously guards its secrets. It's the youngest of the islands, born 300,000 years ago. Ever since he was a child, Nilton has dreamed of unlocking the secrets of his island. Like the enigma of this abandoned seaside village in ruins.
We don't really know the story of this village, except that we do know it was one of the island's very first villages, and that it was abandoned years ago, but we don't exactly know why. Most likely on account of the severe storms that always surely did a lot of damage. The Azores have always been poor. Nobody wanted to work the stone. When someone settled here, it was out of necessity. Then if people stay, it's because the Azores have a special sort of energy. That's why I never left. And frankly, I just love it here.
The volcano is an imposing monument anchored in a vast expanse of ocean. Sailors can spot it from several dozen kilometers out at sea. The French author Chateaubriand describes it in his Memoirs from Beyond the Tomb. This volcano long dominated unsailed seas, a vain beacon by night, an unobserved landmark by day.
Mount Pico is a unique spot. It has so much energy. Here, we're in the center of the 9 islands out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and Pico is even more special because it's a peak in the middle of nowhere. And it acts like a kind of barometer for the wind and clouds. The old-timers in the neighboring islands would observe this mountain to forecast the weather.
To fully appreciate the beauty of the island, you have to take the time to climb the mountain and get above the clouds.
Today's perfect. I'd rather come up here when it's like this. Now, with the clouds like this, it's like we're in the middle of a film by Hitchcock. The atmospheric conditions can be severe, so you have to be well prepared to resist the wind, the cold, and the rain. It may not be very high, but the conditions can be just like those up on a high mountain.
Pico is a land of adventure. The climb can be quite risky. The clouds and mist can move in just a few minutes, making it impossible to continue up to the summit. For more than 500 years, people have been living here and sculpting the volcanic landscape. In this mineral realm, it takes determination to cultivate the rocky soil covered in basalt.
The men of Pico are known for being very strong and working the stone. The history of Pico is a history of stone. The houses are made of stone, so are the roads, and even the vineyards. It's all about stone here, all about working the stone.
These black stone walls shelter a treasure that very nearly disappeared. Pico is well known for its vineyards. They produce a distinctive wine called the Verdelho. In the olden times, the island's wine would travel all the way to the fine tables of the USA, Europe, and Russia. They say that even the Tsars were quite fond of Pico's wine. For centuries, the wine growers and fishermen of the Azores have been working their vineyards with pick and shovel. George, Nilton's uncle, recently inherited a hectare of abandoned land.
I cleared all this land. It took me 90 days of hard work. I burned all the brush, repaired the walls, and replanted vine stocks, and all on my own.
It will take 5 years in the shelter of this jumble of basalt walls before George's vineyard begins to yield wine. Over time, the islanders have learned how to draw their strength from the very soul of the stone. A few years ago, UNESCO designated Pico's vineyards a World Heritage Site. So this maze of walls will continue to protect these precious vines from the brutal winter storms. Nilton has worked as a bartender and skipper. He has managed a discotheque, and now he is the head of a local association of mountain guides. The volcano is his favorite stamping grounds.
There's a quality of life here that has meaning. It's calm, there's peace and quiet. Nature, the rain, the sea, it's something money just can't buy. You're at one with the island here. You merge with it, and it's wonderful.
Nilton's passion for the mountain gives him a particular outlook on the world and leads him to explore new horizons. In the Azores, there are hundreds of caves and underground galleries. Some of them run for more than 5 kilometers, and the island of Pico is a real Swiss cheese.
I discovered this cave by accident about 2 years ago. I was coming down the mountainside, and I noticed this clump of bushes. You see, when there are pits, the herders usually leave the vegetation around them to prevent the cows from falling in. The first time I came was with Walter, through another entrance. And when we saw the cave, we realized it was enormous.
Walter, já cheguei. Vou só tirar o equipamento e já podes descer.
This is the second time that Nilton and his friend Walter have explored this cave. It's an old lava flow. On Pico, they discover new underground chambers like this every year. In the dark depths, we venture into a new world of silence and dreams.
Not many people know about these spots. We're really lucky. We're a bit like modern-day explorers, like the Portuguese who discovered Brazil and the West Indies. Discovering new caves here on Pico is really a treat for us. The herders used to dump their old and sick animals down into the caves because it was too hard to dig holes here on the island. The ground is too hard. So now when we come down here to map the caves, we find cow bones, dog bones, pig bones. I'll go see if there's a passage there or if it's a dead end.
It's a dead end.
Walter and Nilton are trained speleologists. The regional government has commissioned them to catalog and map the newly discovered caves. Their survey will yield a list of the major galleries on the islands. Maybe someday this cave will be open to the public.
327.
In the Azores, the volcanoes and the inhabitants share the same destiny. When the early explorers landed on these uninhabited islands in the middle of the Atlantic, they surely discovered a frightening level of volcanic activity. This archipelago was born of centuries of countless underwater earthquakes and eruptions. Here on Fayal, the next island over from Pico, the last major eruption took place in 1957, when one fine day the Capelinos an underwater volcano awoke from its slumber. The eruption lasted 13 months. This island of sand and stone thrust up from the ocean floor. In 1957, the Capeliños volcano radically changed the age-old landscape. The eruption destroyed a fishing village. The only thing left is the lighthouse. The lighthouse that witnessed the birth of these cliffs surging up from the depths of the Atlantic now stands abandoned. And due to the wind and the waves, the Capeliños volcano is being transformed. Maybe erosion will someday wipe it off the face of the earth. After several hours of climbing, we rise above the clouds and reach the summit of Mount Pico.
Like everyone else here on Pico, I came up here for the first time with someone from the family, with a cousin. It was an incredible night. We were partying with my relatives from Canada. It was in August. And all of a sudden we said, let's go climb the mountain. I was 15, my cousin 18. We grabbed a backpack and took off. It's a tradition to do the climb at night and to get to the peak in time for the sunrise. We didn't really know the mountain. We just kept turning right and right again. It was cold. I'll never forget it. That was the first time, and I've been doing it ever since.
Nearing the summit, we enter into a different realm, mineral and otherworldly. On the slopes of the volcano, there's only the overwhelming silence and the whisper of the wind. This is what makes Pico so moving. From this altitude, the sky and sea blend together.
We're up at 2,300 meters now, and near the crater. This is a stunning landscape. I feel like the king of the world here. All around me, there's nothing but the ocean that we can see down there. And in winter, there's nobody up here. Peace and quiet. It's wonderful. When I climb up here to the summit, I don't think about anything. It empties my mind totally. It's just the sky, the silence, and the mountain. I forget everything else. I feel totally at peace.
Mount Pico is the roof of the Atlantic, a place unlike any other on Earth, open onto the immensity of the ocean and the purity of the world. Somewhere on Earth is setting sail for the Aegean Sea. A natural boundary between Europe and the Near East, this interior sea of the Mediterranean Basin has been inhabited since prehistoric times. an unpredictable sea surrounded by rugged mountains, it has given birth to great myths and fired many an imagination. Peter is a collector of tales. Fascinated by the ruins and legends of the Cyclades, he has appointed himself guardian of these treasures. He's constantly discovering relics and works tirelessly towards creating marine protected areas. Hortense left her native France to lead a nomadic life. On board her sailboat, she follows the winds of the sea. This artist has created a world of her own, a dream world where the earthly laws of gravity have given way to poetry. Miralis, an accomplished climber, has found his equilibrium on the most mythical of mountains. He lives year-round on the peaks of Mount Olympus, abode of the ancient Greek gods, where unspoiled nature guides his footsteps and nourishes his soul.
Mount Olympus for me is the place where I live, and that's where I've done pretty much everything in a high emotional, spiritual, and mental level. So, I don't know, it feels like, and it is the center of the universe for me.
The Aegean Sea is a vast territory scattered with islands. Wherever one looks, there's the outline of a shore. There are close to 10,000 islands and islets, and surely just as many folk tales and epics. At present, only 170 islands are inhabited. This is the cradle of the first empires of the sea, those powers which, by mastering the wind and currents, dominated its populations. Unlike mountains, which impeded circulation, the sea opened tremendous thoroughfares onto the rest of the world. Here, the shores provided the shelter necessary for trade to grow. There, a refuge for pirates, or a natural rampart against barbarian invasions. The Cyclades archipelago in the heart of the Aegean Sea is a maritime crossroads between Orient and Occident, where down through the ages one civilization continually followed on the heels of another. 15 years ago, Peter Nikolaidis founded the Aegean Institute here in order to study and protect the treasures of the Aegean Sea.
Δηλαδή αν μπορώ κάνουμε εδώ πέρα λίγο 5 μήνες, ναι, κάπου εκεί πέρα ευθεία στην ευθεία μας. Nice.
The level of the Mediterranean Sea has been continuously rising, covering certain traces of the past. Ancient Greece has still not yielded up all its secrets. The sea has swallowed them in places. So one has to take to the air to observe and measure these vestiges.
I started studying these channels about 10 years ago. They really fascinated me. So I started thinking about the fact that they're so huge and there's so many around Paros that it must have something to do with a major economic activity. Now Paros has been exporting marble in a big way since 700 BC. So that's when we started building the Parthenon. So there was a need for a lot of marble. So I think this is most probably a very clever way to roll the marble onto ships or barges or whatever. So I've been spotting structures like this all over the island. This area is really wonderful for discovery.
When a thick vein of exceptional marble, lignite, was discovered in the heart of Paros, it changed the island's destiny. Thanks to its fine, translucent texture, this marble was highly prized by the greatest sculptors of antiquity. The frescoes of the Parthenon, as well as the legendary Venus de Milo, owe their deep, eternal luster to this stone.
If you want to see one sculpture, you close your eyes and you feel it by hand. The earth is give us the gift of the stone, and we have to respect that. For myself, I think in not gold, something more than the gold. I have a life in my hand if I work in that stone.
Emmanuel is perpetuating the reputation of Paros marble. He's proud to carry this heritage.
All of my work, if they have a mouth to talk, they say, leave me alone for all the time and touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it. I couldn't remember how many times I have do that, many times. The place for they to cut the stones, many people have killed, have dead there. It's not easy to take one block like that, 10,000 kilo, and make it by hand. Now I have the machine, and the machine lift it up, the machine cut it. Then years they're not machine, everything by hand. So they are heroes. They build the Acropolis, they build by hand. They are very smart because they find the solution. I think nothing stop them. I wish to go the time in back, to stay just a day, just a week, you know, to see how is it. I dream in many times, what they doing, if I have a difficult work, I try to find the solution in the years before. I say, how they do it.
The marble of Paros retains a part of its mystery. Peter, eager to get his information firsthand, has come to the Marati quarry to meet Emmanuel. These are no mere quarries. They are in fact more like marble mines. They were worked for centuries. They testify to the brutality of the work and the determination of the quarrymen. Over 150,000 slaves were worked to the bone in these quarries.
Look at that here. It's very wide. You see that? The small piece there?
Yeah, yeah.
Stuff like that they want.
Yeah,
not the next one. Yeah. That one they want. So, and here you see how they finish the roof. Look. All of that. Thousand million tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Hammer and the...
Incidentally, the hammer in ancient Greek is called tukos.
Tukos.
Tuk, tuk.
Tuk, tuk, tuk. Look at here, Peter. Fantastic is the roof, eh?
This stone was so prized that the quarrymen went to unprecedented lengths to extract it. The finest marble lies deep in the bowels of the mountain, so they had to move thousands of tons of earth and stone to reach the heart of the vein. Some of these galleries are 500 meters long. The soft, fragile stone would break easily, and then it would be worth less. These blocks, abandoned for centuries, will never see the light of day.
That piece of stone, for example, we are best in all the world because you can put the light and say the normal is 10 centimeters. They say for transparent, yes. Yeah. But look at here, it's more than 10. Here is 15, 20, or... Easily. Yeah, easily. They have not a battery many years before.
So it was oil lamp.
Yeah, exactly. That's the lichnia. And they put the lichnia back of the marble and they look inside the light. That is give the name lichnitis. So the Parian marble have the name Lichnitis.
Lichnos.
Lichnos, yes.
Right.
The French writer Jean Giono said, when mysteries are very clever, they hide themselves in the light. The history of the Cyclades is made up of these many highlights, and there's still much to be learned beneath the shimmering surface of the sea. Peter, an underwater engineer, has been diving for over 50 years. He has been applying his technical know-how to oceanography.
This is a marine protected area, at least on paper. But now what I'm trying to do is to implement this. And within these marine protected areas, it's not only the fish that we want to grow in size and numbers, but it's an area where you can run experiments, we can run research, you can learn, you can enjoy, geology, biology, and technology.
Okay.
He is currently studying the corrosion of submerged metals. Peter sets up an array of samples on site. They'll be checked regularly. The objective is to analyze the degradation of the wrecks around Paros in order to better preserve them.
The sea is a vast reservoir of knowledge and surprises and discovery. I think it makes you feel, it keeps you feeling young. The fact that you observe and then discover always keeps you in a state of excitement, zest, and passion for what you're doing.
Peter, a tireless explorer, records all the discoveries he makes in his archipelago.
Knowledge is really the ultimate emancipator. Wherever I look, I see geology, biology, archaeology, history, or just plain beauty, aesthetics. So this kind of thing, I think, has a very, very positive effect on the mind, the brain, the soul, or whatever you want to call it. And you do feel a sense of elation, calm, harmony, all these nice words.
Preserving the vestiges of the past, but also ensuring the resources of the present. The future of the Cyclades lies in its coastlines. Peter devotes all his time and energy to protecting this fragile equilibrium. He travels the islands, working with other active players in the spirited life of the archipelago.
I see myself as an interface between the fishermen and sort of local communities in Cyclades and the research and scientific community. And we are putting together a plan to create a network of marine protected areas in the Cyclades. That's extremely important because it's been done in the rest of the Mediterranean, in France and Italy and Spain, and it's very successful. And we haven't done anything like that in Greece. So until 2020, we're supposed to have 10% of our seas under protection.
On the island of Santorini, they are celebrating a small victory. A marine protected area has just been established. New hope for all those who want to see the island's waters come back to life.
It seems to me that the protected maritime area that you had proposed will be that one right over there.
The fishermen have accepted it, but we have to agree on the distance.
Yes, right.
Kyriakos Prekas is the union representative for the traditional fishermen. He and Peter are working with others at finding alternative solutions to ensure the survival of Santorini's fishermen.
What'll save us is being legally permitted to become fishing guides for the tourists. That'll breathe new life into our industry.
Well, for you, the stakes are really high.
That's right, Peter. You know, as soon as we have the authorization to take tourists on board, we'll adapt our boats.
To protect the sea that provides nourishment and hope to the Greek people. Now Kyriakos has to convince the other fishermen to stop fishing in these protected areas.
You know, I'm almost 60. Our grandfathers and fathers left us a sea alive with fish. Back in their day, they were careful, so they didn't need marine protected areas. Nowadays, they're a necessity because we've ransacked everything. The entire planet should take a serious interest in the sea. I really believe that.
Ωχ, τη θάλασσα την αγαπώ. Τη θάλασσα την αγαπώ και την ποτίζω μέλι, γιατί την ταξιδεύουμε κορμάκια σαν αγγέλη. Για μολά, για λέσα, για σου θάλασσα μπαμπέσα. Για σου θάλασσα μπαμπέσα, για μολά, για λέσα.
I want to leave simply another little stone, or hopefully several little pixels in the picture. I think this is what I could contribute. The fact that everything's important, everything is part of the puzzle, is just knowing how to connect the dots and look at the larger picture.
The Aegean is more than a sea. It's the realm of Aeolus, god of the winds. The sea, flanked by mainland Greece and Turkey, acts as a funnel which accelerates the winds from the north. Aeolus blows hot and cold. In the summer, he unleashes the Meltem. In winter, the Boreas, violent winds that cut the islands off from the rest of the world. In that case, the Greek port authorities declare apago reftiko, sailing prohibited.
Station from 496 sailing yacht. Yes, good morning, sir. I'm calling you regarding the weather forecast in the area around. Let him know for the next 24 hours. Over.
The weather for the next 12 hours is northerlies 5644.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have a good watch. Bye-bye.
Silent out.
I like having to adapt to different conditions, feeling that I'm not part of the normal world. Diving is a million miles from that world. All the rules change, the ones we're born with. The weightlessness, the sound, the way of seeing things. You have to use your body in a totally different way. You don't get that anywhere else but on the water. The sea, being on the water, is a form of refuge. A refuge from noise, from today's world that moves too fast. When you're on the water, time stops.
To experience the world in a different way. Hortense Le Calvez made her first dive at the age of 17. She soon turned professional and became a diving instructor. When she met Mathieu, she got him diving too, opening up for him a different vision of the world.
For me, art is the capacity of seeing what's familiar in a new way. It's being able to step back and assume completely different perspectives on what we take for granted, what we consider banal. Now we're working on an installation called Posidonia. The inspiration came from the Posidonia seaweed. We recreate it as if it had taken over certain objects, as if they had already spent a length of time in the water.
Hortense is 25 years old. She studied fine arts in Amsterdam, then sculpture in London. But driven by her desire for freedom and adventure, she opted for a nomadic life, far from the conventions and dictates of society.
I decided to live on a boat when I was 15. Seeing my parents living in a house, that was dreadful to me. Always in the same spot? No way. That's why I learned how to sail. For me, sailing was above all an escape route. On a boat, anywhere you go, you're at home. It's awesome.
Hortense and Mathieu share the same passion for the sea. They've been sailing together for 3 years. This boat has become their only home.
The boat is named Forlan 6, and it has become the name of our studio. It's a kind of traveling workshop where you can experiment. We really hope to have someday people come on board and collaborate with us, run little workshops here and there on the islands, depending on what comes up.
Crete, last landfall before Africa, the largest island of the Aegean Sea. It marks the boundary with the rest of the Mediterranean. It has a milder climate in winter than the rest of the islands and offers shelter when the strong winds sweep across the waters of the Aegean Sea. Hortense and Mathieu have spotted a peninsula, Balos, on the western tip of Crete that might be a good place for a dive. They're looking for a bay sheltered from the winds and currents.
Look at the breakers.
The weather should be okay by the time we get to the beach.
Impossible to come all this way on foot.
Yeah, no way. We're lucky he picked us up.
The studio is very new. We only started at the beginning of the winter, in December.
Yeah, this adventure only started 4 or 5 months ago. The research is important, in the sense that each time we see what works and what doesn't. And we have a lot of ideas, so we really have projects that just pop up, and our goal is to carry out as many as possible.
Mathieu was an officer in the French merchant marine. After 10 years spent on commercial ships, he changed course to sail away with Hortense.
The location scouting is very important because each installation demands a specific setting. For some pieces, we'll be looking for crystal clear water. Others will want a sandy bottom or rocky formations. Like laundry, for instance. We really needed to find big rock formations to attach the two ends of a clothesline. It's different every time.
The Mediterranean's transparent waters, the absence of tides, and the shallow shores make the Aegean Sea the ideal workshop for this duo's projects.
When I did my first dive, it was such a revelation to realize that you can work on the water. You can do what you want. It's great. I can stay down for an hour, even two if the water is warm and I don't go too deep. I really wanted to combine my art studies with this newfound passion. The photography is really the trace of this fleeting moment. It's not the end of that moment, and it's not the goal either. It's the outcome. It's what we can share, for now.
The everyday objects, reworked by Hortense, come to life as in fanciful tales. The sea brings them into relief. They cast their spell on us. They tweak our curiosity.
We really combine all our passions in order to create images, to surprise people, to amuse them. So we are really creating our very own world, and then we hope that it strikes a chord in other people.
To shed convention and break free of the norms. Hortense is writing her own life story, the story of a free woman with a poetic soul.
The sea has taught me everything. It's always been a great source of inspiration. I've always sailed. I've always lived close to the sea. I couldn't do without it. The sea, it's my home. It's my childhood. It's the only place where I feel good.
Hortense and Mathieu work together to compose a world of their own, an imaginary realm where the laws of gravity are suspended. A space where water and wind are the raw materials of their adventure. Like cathedrals thrusting towards the heavens, the meteora are a masterpiece of nature. Meteora in Greek means suspended in the air. The early hermits saw in this mystical place the handiwork of God and the ideal setting for prayer and asceticism. They withdrew into these natural caves and hollows, cut off from the world of humans. In the 14th century, Greek Orthodox monks, early mountaineers, undertook the construction of a breathtaking series of 24 monasteries devoted to seclusion. No roads, no stairs. Ropes and pulleys the only link with the outside world below. 6 of these monasteries are still active. This site has lost nothing of its mystical aura. It's also a favored destination for the more daring climbers, where they tackle these 300-meter cliff faces and challenge the void. Michale Stilas is one of these rock climbers for whom the sky is the only limit. To climb as high as the gods. For some, it's a way of life. For others, a profession of faith. Ultimately, the quest here at the Meteora has been the same for centuries. Solitude, silence, and ecstasy.
When you're in difficult positions, you really focus on the next millisecond. And it's really, your whole universe becomes just a tiny bit of rock or of ice, and your whole life and your whole inner existence depends on this tiny bit of rock and ice. When a second becomes a century, then everything else is easy, just easy. That's the beauty about climbing. It's the instant, and it's the greatness of the wide.
To go knocking at heaven's gate, Michalis has taken up year-round residence where no one else dared to live before. At over 2,600 meters altitude, in one of the highest refuges in Greece, he is the guardian of Mount Olympus.
This place over here is it's the balcony of the refuge, because you have the void just past this point. So first, when you're close to the edge, you feel more mortal, which is a thing that we tend to forget in our out of the mountain life. And then it's the view. You know, when you have the gap and the air under your legs, you feel like a little god, you know. So yeah, it's definitely a very exposed place, and when you're very close to a dynamic place like this, you get a little higher.
Rather than a single mountain, Olympus is in fact more of a massif, with 9 peaks over 2,600 meters in altitude. Unconquered for ages, often cloaked in clouds, the ancients considered it as the center of the world. It was the sacred abode of the gods of Greek mythology, forbidden to mortals. In the heart of the winter, which lasts 6 months here, there can be up to 4 meters of snow on the ground.
I wouldn't have thought myself 8 years ago to spend a whole month here in the winter. It was a science fiction scenario for us, even for us. But when you live in the nature and you adapt with the rules of nature, then everything becomes really easy. You know, first your mind adapts to a certain idea, to the conditions, to the natural conditions, and then everything else follows. Now you get ready to climb.
The nearest village, Litooro, is 20 kilometers away, and there's no road.
Every time I have to go up and down for the supplies, to resupply the refuge, it's really a good chance to get back in shape for future projects.
During the long winter, it takes at least a 2-day hike to make the climb and restock the refuge. A drawback, but it doesn't stop Michalis.
I have been climbing on Mount Olympus for 30 years. In the last 10 years, I'm managing refuge Kakalos. So I can't remember how much times I climbed since my youth up on this place. Pretty much it's countless times. Just if you think that only this winter I've been there 35 times, only in the winter. That means that for the past 10 years, great proportion of my life belongs to Mount Olympus.
As long as there's still snow in the mountains, the mules can't climb the trail to the refuge. They come halfway up, then they have to turn around and head back down to the Aegean Sea. From there on, the climbers have to backpack the supplies the rest of the way up.
Βάλα κιόλας, έλα ρε, ευχαριστώ. Τα λέμε έτσι, άντε, καλό δρόμο. Ciao.
Mount Olympus, in the northwest of the Aegean Sea, has fascinated people ever since they've lived in Greece. Its feet in the sea and its head in the clouds, it rises to close to 3,000 meters. Its flanks slope gently into the Mediterranean. It's the highest mountain in Greece. And in the dying rays of the sun, its shadow stretches far into the sea. $30 kilos of supplies each. And they tackle the home stretch to the refuge. Alex and Nikos are old friends of Michalis. It wouldn't be possible to run the refuge without them.
Well, house is officially assigned as the place that you get to spend most of your time, right? So the place where I get most of my time for the last 8 years, actually, it's right there. It's below the throne of Zeus. So the refuge for me is my house because that's where I work, that's where I live, that's where I ski, that's where I climb, that's where I'm hoping to do my research in the future and put all these things together in the blender, and it makes a home, a very nice home. It feels like the center of the universe for me, and having a house in the center of the universe, it's something I feel really privileged about that. What else?
Michalis was the first one to have the pluck to open the refuge in winter. One has to have a touch of madness to take this path. More than a few hikers have been put off by the ridge of Lemos. Sheer drop of 1,500 meters, the slightest fall would be the last.
It's this fine line you have to draw between your abilities, your desire, your passion, nature, and what you're really gonna take out of this thing. People believe that it's really stupid to go climb mountains, but for me it's like a world of wisdom. Because I've been in the university for many years. I have a doctorate degree in geology, but the things that I learned, not about the rocks, but about myself on the mountain, nobody could ever teach me these things. So it's this relation that keeps me going on and evolve as a mountaineer, and after that evolve as a person. I don't know if better person or worse person, but I definitely define myself through my mountaineering experiences.
The Christos Kakalos refuge, perched on the plateau of the Muses, was named after the first Greek to climb Olympus. It was 100 years ago. Now Michalis is getting ready for a climb to the summit, a way for him and his climbing partners to celebrate the end of winter.
I got hurt in the mountains maybe more times than I should have, and that's not because of the mountain. It's just because of me. It's because of my mindset, and because of not obeying some rules that the mountain sets for standard. It's the philosophy is the same anywhere you are. But speaking about Olympus, this is the place where everything started, and for me, this is the place where still everything keeps evolving. I don't know until when, but it's definitely like climbing the infinite spire. It's never gonna end.
Mount Olympus as a base camp, the ridgeline as horizon, and the summits as leitmotif. Michalis has tackled the most demanding mountains on Earth: the Alps, the Andes, the Rockies, the Himalayas. He took part in the only Greek expedition to climb Mount Everest. Braving the heavens has brought its lot of accidents. Falls, fractures, frostbite. The mountain has also taken the lives of several of Michalis' friends.
You accept even dying. You never want to die, of course, but sometimes you have this really high emotion when you're up there and when you're over the edge, that you say, okay, I'm gonna push it a little more, and it's worth my life. But my experience tells me that this is not the case. I go in the mountains to get more life, not to give my life. This is really addictive, to be honest with you. I can't change that for anything in my life. Conditions are good. Yeah. Now the snow is a little bit soft, but we need 120 meters to reach the adobe of the ancient gods, the pantheon.
Hello, Zeus.
Oh, días,
2,917 meters. Mytikas is the highest peak of Mount Olympus, the summit of Greece.
Well, here we are, somewhere on Earth. 3 friends sharing the joy of being connected to the Earth, the sky, the snow, and the sea.
Michalis Stylas has never been religious, but like the ancient Greeks, he feels the force of this place. The throne of Zeus, the god of the gods, is an intimidating sight for mere mortals. It's above all the sculptor of the greatest of the divinities, a masterpiece of nature. For the ancients, the abode of their 12 gods and goddesses was this eyrie perched on the balcony of the world, caressed by the Aegean Sea, suspended in the air, and cloaked in eternal snows. Somewhere on Earth is off to discover Croatia. This country in the southern Balkans, with its population of 4.5 million inhabitants, is a land of contrasts, extending from the Mediterranean to Central Europe, and is surprisingly rich in natural wonders. Petra Kovac Konrad, a scuba diving enthusiast and geologist, is constantly traveling the country to explore the underground realm in search of a strange and mysterious creature, the Proteus, found nowhere but in the darkness of Balkan caves. The Kornati Islands seem far removed from the world. Sebastien Dao, an inveterate sailor and adventure raid organizer from Brittany, was attracted to this stark environment and has made a simple life for himself here in Croatia, living in harmony with nature. The Kopački, located on the Danube in eastern Croatia, is a vast wetland sanctuary for Europe's largest wild animals and thousands of birds. It's also where Goran Safarek, a biologist and nature photographer, feels most at home.
People think that the sea is the most beautiful feature of Croatia. Yes, it's what made the country known worldwide, but it has other riches, and not many people know about that.
This region of water and forests is protected from all human activity. For centuries, this floodplain of the Danube served as hunting grounds for the Austro-Hungarian nobility. You don't necessarily have to travel to the ends of the earth to get a close look at large wild animals. This huge natural marshland has always been one of Europe's richest wildlife refuges. Located in Slavonia, in the eastern part of Croatia, the Kopački is one of the largest wetlands of the Balkans. Goran Safarek is about to rendezvous with the unknown. He has come here to observe nature and live in harmony with the creatures of Kopački. He even seems part of the fauna himself.
I'm in very close touch with nature. It stirs very strong feelings in me, particularly when I'm alone in such a wild setting. It's a marvelous feeling. My mind is alert to the sounds, the odors, the water lapping, the mud. When all my senses are alive like this, it makes me want to discover new things.
Goran loves the Kopački and is an ardent defender of this biotope. He studied biology and is a nature photographer as well.
The park abounds with life. At any moment, eagles could sweep right by you. There are all sorts of birds. There are deer. It's an explosion of life in all its splendor. I love being here. I'm a hunter, but I hunt images. To get a good shot, you have to get close, and that's not easy. One method is hiding out. You have to be familiar with the animal's behavior. Deer have very good hearing and a keen sense of smell. Boars as well. They're always snuffing everything around them, so each animal has its own approach to its environment. You have to work alone when you're shooting. Be attentive, patient, and quiet. I like to go off on my own. It's good anti-stress therapy. I love lying out in the wild, waiting for the animals. When I'm stalking, I'm alone with my thoughts. I just love that.
Today, Goran is going out with his friend Tibor, an ornithologist. They're going to do a count of a colony of wading birds, gray herons and night herons.
They're over there.
If we make a move, they'll fly off and leave their nests.
And how long before they come back?
If we move off, they'll come right back because they're brooding.
What do we do? Try to get closer?
Yeah, we'll get closer, but be really careful. Right now, we're in the middle of the spring migration. The birds come here from Africa and the Mediterranean to nest and brood. And right now, the season's first colonies are settling in. Some are already brooding. Others are building their nests. It's one of the two best periods of the year for observing them.
This is one of the entries to the Kopački Reed. On the right side, you have the Danube. Serbia is on the other side, and straight ahead is the nature park. No one ever comes here. It's really wild. I use the same trails that the animals use. I'm nervous every time I come to the Kopački Reed. It's magic. This is the realm of the animals. I always have to be ready with my camera. All sorts of surprises can pop up. It's quite something because at any instant, you could find yourself face to face with a deer or a boar. You have to be on your toes.
In the Kopački Reed, scientists have recorded nearly 300 species of birds. The wetlands is an inexhaustible source of images for Goran, the photographer. Thanks to photography, Goran has gotten to know the naturalists, hunters, and fishermen of the Danube. He knows all the park rangers. He also runs into poachers sometimes. Over the years, he has become a go-between for the people of the wetland who would seem to have nothing in common. The rangers know all the nooks and crannies of the forest, and they're glad to share their little secrets with Goran.
People often have a romantic image of nature, but it can get very cold and very hot out here. There are swarms of mosquitoes, they get into your eyes and mouth, but the pleasure of photography outweighs all that. I can hear geese in the distance. It's their bedtime. There are other birds over there. You have to know how to identify the sounds of nature. I know that these are geese on this side and herons over there. Right away, I know what's going on around me. Humans can't see at night, but we can hear nature and smell the aromas. You just have to be alert. You just have to listen.
Dobar dan, Dalibore.
Hey there, Dalibor. Everything ready?
Yeah, we're all set. Hop on. You'll see. You're going to really feel the wind, like on a motorcycle.
Kopački Reet is vast, 17,000 hectares. It's hard to grasp the extent when you're down on the ground. You have to fly over it to get the bird's eye view. From the air, you can see just how many waterways and reed groves there are in the forest.
Every spring, when the snow melts in the eastern Alps, the Danube rises and floods the park. This year, the spring thaw is late, but in a few weeks, the plains of Kopački Reet will give birth to an abundance of wildlife.
I always loved nature films. In high school, I really enjoyed the sciences. Later, I majored in biology at the university, and that's where it all started. I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world: Africa, South America, Asia. Then I realized that Croatia itself has a wealth of beauty and riches, and that's how I got started here.
Goran has become one of Croatia's foremost image hunters. His work has been published in scientific, travel, and hunting reviews. Last year, he was honored as one of the top 100 personalities making for a better Croatia. Goran lives according to the changing of the seasons. Nature imposes its own rhythm on his life. The photographer never misses a chance to make an early morning face-to-face with this wild world.
For me, it's an art. Getting as close as possible to nature and just blending in with it. As a biologist, I've always preferred this world. I see myself as a predator, as a sort of lone wolf, because to get a decent shot, you have to be as quiet and as invisible as possible. It's better when you're alone. I'm a lone wolf out stalking images. Animal photography is extremely demanding and can be very frustrating as well. But when the encounter does take place, it's a magnificent moment. There are some people whose dream is meeting a star. For me, running into a boar, a deer, or any animal at a distance of 10 meters is just unbelievable. There's nothing that can beat it.
Flooded by the waters of the Danube, the Kopački is a UNESCO biosphere reserve. Goran has a front row seat on these vast territories, and thanks to photography, he can share its most beautiful aspects. One needs to know how to melt into this exceptional environment to capture the life of this untamed land. Petra Kovac Konrad loves mountains and the world of silence. The list of her exploits in her field could make your head spin, but the extremes she has conquered are not on the maps. Petra's universe is invisible, extreme, and subterranean.
We're south of the Velebit Range, on the Chernopach Mountain. This is the wildest part. There's nothing here, just nature and forests. It also has Croatia's largest network of caves, 23 kilometers long.
Speleology is a quest in dark labyrinths and silent caverns, leading to the depths of one's inner being. Jules Verne imagined his voyage to the center of the Earth as a descent into an underworld inhabited by legendary monsters. For Petra, each expedition into the bowels of the planet is a voyage of initiation. Speleology is both a scientific and mental adventure. Petra, a geologist who enjoys a good challenge, is fascinated by the subterranean world. She plumbs the depths of these mysteries and explores the icy waters of Croatia's countless underground rivers.
Speleology is a very special passion because you move away from the known world and descend into a totally different environment. When you're caving, you're cut off from the outside. When we're underground, we're kind of in our own little world, and we can enjoy that. We can do what we like in this world that belongs to us.
Here at the Baradina Refuge, Petra meets up with some friends from the Zagreb Caving Club. They're going to make an expedition to the underground Pinchinova River in the depths of the partially unexplored cave. Petra also works in a geology laboratory. Every 2 months, she comes to observe one of the world's rarest animals, the Proteus, an amphibian that lives only in the Balkans. Every caving trip is a full-fledged expedition. Petra does more than just plumb the depths of the Earth. For the past 8 years, she's been exploring Croatia's underground rivers along with Vedran and his father Branko. These 3 speleologists form a very tight-knit group.
We're 9 cavers here today, but only 3 of us will be diving. You have to count at least 2 people per diver to help bring the gear down. It means a lot of organization. We're going to push further into the cave, explore new zones. That's why we're so concentrated.
The entrance to the Pinchinova Cavern is out in the country, in Istria, not far from the Slovenian border. Petra and Vedran are hoping to find some Proteus there. But before they can do any diving, the team of cavers has to descend 60 meters below the surface down a narrow shaft. Vedran gives some last-minute safety instructions. Every dive has a certain risk.
When we're here, we'll still be attached. It's the bottom of the shaft. And here, you have a really muddy patch. Then it starts sloping down. Here's where it narrows. The last time there was a depth of 25 to 28 meters of water, I think. Then there's a very narrow passage, about this wide, just wide enough to get through.
If you see that it's fantastic, I can wait 5 minutes to give you the time to come back and get me or not. Okay?
Right.
I'll wait 5 minutes at the entrance.
Right, wait a while.
Okay, I'll wait.
If I don't come back, you head back up.
It's never routine. Each expedition is unique, and we have to prepare it in a specific way. We never know what we'll run into.
Like mountaineers tackling a peak, a first team of speleologists heads into the cavern to rig the walls and ensure that the divers get down safely. They have to bring more than 300 kilos of gear from outside to the underground base camp about 30 meters lower down. Each member of the team knows exactly what they have to do. Vedran, the dive master, makes sure that the operation goes smoothly. The descent will take 2 hours. An expedition like this calls for a lot of teamwork, which is the very philosophy of caving.
We've been diving together since 2006. We started out exploring a spring that Vedran's father showed us. Now, I'm writing my geology thesis on that cave, and we've been diving together ever since. It's best to always dive with the same people, partners you get along with and who you can communicate best with underwater.
Petra, Vedran, and his father are very concentrated. They've already crossed over into their own world. Underground, the air is thick with tension. This is the final vertical shaft before the river. Down here, 60 meters below the surface of the earth, things are beginning to get tense for the divers. The plunge into inky darkness, a feeling of excitement mixed with anxiety.
Mountain climbing and caving, they're almost the same thing, but I go underground, and the feeling you get when scaling the summits, well, I get it when reaching the depths. That's how it is. I descend.
To get to the first chamber, the divers have to make their way through a gallery about 20 meters long. During a previous expedition, Petra and Vedran spotted a new opening at the end of this tunnel. They hope to find traces of animal life and new specimens of the Proteus on the underground riverbed. The explorers advance slowly to avoid clouding the cavern's crystal-clear water. If their flippers should graze the cave walls and disturb the centuries-old sediment, it could reduce the visibility to a few centimeters, compromise the success of their mission, and even endanger their lives.
It's really an amazing feeling. We're like astronauts floating in weightlessness. Gravity disappears, a feeling you can only get in space or underwater. With each dive, particularly when we're exploring, there's a tinge of stress as you pay out the guideline. Fear is a healthy reaction. You should be frightened. It keeps you alert regarding safety. Every time we enter a new zone, we feel the secret magic of the place. There's mystery. We don't know what we're going to find. It spurs us on to go even further.
It's a foray into the unknown, like an inverse climb. Similar to mountaineers roped together, the lead diver pays out the guideline, their sole connection to the light of day. Diving beneath the surface of the Earth is a fragile pulsation of life, an extreme voyage, as mental as it is instinctive. The slightest error can be fatal.
One of the worst situations I ever had to face was in a spring near Orgulin. I found myself all alone during a dive 20 meters down, and all of a sudden my primary light went out. I couldn't even see how much oxygen I had left. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. That lasted 3 to 5 minutes. I tried to locate the line to find my way out, but I couldn't. So all I could do was wait until someone came to get me. It lasted 3 to 5 minutes, I'm not sure. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So that was the worst experience of my life.
They didn't find the passage they were looking for this time, but they've pushed to the end of the line and the end of their oxygen. Now they have to make their way to the surface to get back to the rest of the crew. Each expedition is a unique adventure, even for Petra, Vedran, and Branko, 3 accomplished divers. 2 years ago, they set the Croatian record for cave diving.
Vedran and I dove in the country's deepest cave, the Lukina Yama. We went down 1,390 meters and stayed down there for 5 days. From there, we dove every day to explore the cave, and that's when we dove to a depth of 60 meters. Hey, it's still light out.
Petra and Vedran have been exploring Croatia's caves for nearly 10 years now. Together, they've traveled thousands of kilometers to survey as many caves as possible. Croatia is a paradise for geologists and cave divers. Petra, 35, has become one of the best in her field, and she continues to pursue her quest with the same enthusiasm.
We're lucky in Croatia, for nature here is relatively unspoiled. Everything came to a halt during the war. In fact, for 10 to 15 years, there's been no investment. People left and there's no heavy industry, so nature has been preserved.
Tako da je priroda ostala dobro očuvana. Tu se nalazimo na području.
This is the region of limestone rivers. All the rivers, all the water around here is drinkable. That's quite rare in Europe these days, unfortunately.
Petra is finishing up a thesis in geology. Diving is an ideal way for her to combine her love of underground exploration with her laboratory research. For tens of thousands of years, the river water has been sculpting countless cavities in the limestone rock, forming what is called karst, which is a landscape of limestone dissolved by flowing water. Croatia has hundreds of rivers and streams that vanish into the bowels of the earth and never reach the sea. Petra and Vedran carry on with their investigation. They're going to look for Proteus in this stream that disappears beneath a limestone cliff. They spot a first Proteus in their beam of light. A strange creature. It's blind, it has tiny paws and external gills. For ages, this cave-dwelling creature, which resembles a salamander, has been called the human fish on account of its skin color. They also call it the baby dragon. In times past, when there was flooding, the underground rivers would carry the Proteus to the surface rivers. When the Balkan country folk would see them, They took them as proof that great dragons existed deep within the earth. This animal remains an enigma. Its metabolism allows it to go for quite a long time without eating. Scientists are eager to pierce the mysteries of the Proteus. It is proof that life can exist in a pitch-black environment that has remained unchanged for millions of years. The Proteus can live for up to 100 years in the inky silence of the Balkan caves.
We're quite lucky because we have an infinite field of exploration. Even if we were to spend our entire lives cave diving, we still wouldn't exhaust the possibilities. Unfortunately, there aren't many cave divers in Croatia because it's expensive and rather dangerous. We run into extreme conditions of cold and darkness, and there's the risk of getting lost. That's why not many people practice this type of diving. But for us, there'll always be new spaces to discover.
In Croatia, there are some 200,000 caves. At present, only 8,000 have been surveyed. Petra will be able to continue gliding through the fissures and chasms of the earth for a long time to come. Sebastien Dao landed in the Kornati Islands 10 years ago, when his dreams of the sea drew him to the shores of the Adriatic. In winter, the islands are practically deserted. The climate is harsh and life rather austere. This is exactly what Sebastien came looking for in this region of Croatia. Early spring is an ideal time to visit these islands and map out future sailing trips. Over time, Sebastien has made a place for himself in the little Dalmatian fishing community, where he's known as the Frenchman of the Kornatis.
Thanks to my sailing, I've been accepted by the locals. I teach the youngsters how to sail, and that touches a sensitive chord here. You have to take the time to get to know the people here. The Dalmatians are a bit gruff when you first meet them. You have to tame them. If you take your time, you'll find they're people who like to live well. They like good things. They're rather down to earth. And that suits me just fine.
Oh, Mariana, Sladka mala Mariana, Debetu Tekatja, dok
The islands, scattered along the Adriatic, are for the most part uninhabited. There are 147 of them off the rugged, intimidating Dalmatian coast. This is an ideal domain for Sebastien, who ever since his childhood in Brittany has always been in contact with the sea.
My relationship with the sea comes largely from my parents. My father was a biological engineer at the French Oceanic Institute. I was always in contact with engineers, biologists, and technicians who were working with the sea, like how to repopulate the seabeds, how to study the animal life, That was my first contact with the sea before getting bitten by the sailing bug. Now it's become my profession. Thanks to these people, I realized I was born to live outdoors. I was made to be on the water. It's really hard for me to live away from the sea. I have to feel it. I like to live out in the nature, with the wind, the waves, with the movement of the boats, with all the marine life. These are the elements that make up my life.
Here in the heart of the islands, Sebastien opens the doors to a realm that he knows well. He has discovered here a unique environment, swept by violent winds. In the course of his sailing, he has become the tracker of an invisible material, the Bura. To the north, the Kornatis are sheltered by the imposing Velebit Massif, which peaks at more than 1,700 meters. This is a totally different world, a world of mountains and forest, the realm of solitude and icy cold, birthplace of a wind notorious for being one of the planet's most powerful, the Bura. It can reach a record speed of 300 kilometers an hour. When the Bura is blowing, life comes to a halt. On land and on sea, Sebastien likes to face off with these extreme conditions and the violence of the storms that regularly buffet the region. Here he has found what he needs to satisfy his thirst for nature in its wildest state. Sebastien finds his equilibrium in confronting the force of the elements.
We're not very far from the sea. We're just on the inland side of the Velebit mountain that separates us from the sea. And there's a completely different climate here. It's continental, whereas by the sea, there's an oceanic climate. The sea warms the atmosphere. And here, with the masses of cold air coming down from the north, the temperature on the plateau drops way down.
They say that the Bura carries away the warm water of the sea, and that it never lasts more than 7 days. It also changes the color of the mountains. In just a few hours, a new landscape has come into existence. These are the last snowfalls of the spring.
If you don't check the weather beforehand, you can get into real trouble with these winds that can easily blow at 150 to 200 kilometers an hour and bring snow where just a few hours before, the weather was fine. If you're not prepared for this kind of cold, it can be fatal. The Croatian seafarers and mountain folk alike fear this wind.
Sebastien has learned how to cope with these angry storms, and he'd rather face the legions of clouds in the mountains than at sea. Like any sailor worth his salt, Sebastien knows that he has to hunker down and wait out the storm. He can sometimes be stuck for a week while waiting for the wind to let up. Here, Sebastien has already been under the thumb of the burra for 2 days.
La burra, c'est un vent typique de la Croatie.
The bora is a typical wind of Croatia. It starts in the mountains as a mass of cold air that pours down the slopes and gives rise to winds that are often very violent. And it can happen at any time of the year. Out at sea, it churns up the water. It's a very irregular and very sudden wind.
The wind has dropped off and the sea has calmed down. At last, Sebastien can take to sea again. For 10 years now, he's been organizing sailing raids in the Kornati Islands for navigators like him in search of simplicity and authenticity. Sebastien likes nothing better than the simple pleasure of sailing for its own sake. He's living out his childhood dream, as if he had signed a pact with the sea, promising a life of complete freedom.
When I set out to sea, I'm taken by the elements. I forget my worries. Well, if I have any. As soon as I'm out in nature, nothing else counts. I feel that I'm free to sail when I want and where I want.
Sebastien has decided to bivouac for the night on the little island with the Chica lighthouse that overlooks the Kornati National Park. This is the first time he's landed in this spot. The island is tiny, but it's ideally situated as a stopover in the heart of the Kornatis. Before nightfall, Sebastien takes some time to scout out the island. It will be a destination of future sailing raids.
If you count the number of nights I've spent outdoors in a tent or under the stars since I've been doing raids, it turns out that I've spent more than 3 years of my life out in the nature, here in Croatia and in other countries. Every night, it's just magical because you're so close to nature. You have a fantastic sky strewn with stars. It's been 3 years of adventure, and each camp is a new challenge, so it makes you want to keep doing it. It's simply enchanting.
It's the beginning of the summer season. The first tourists will soon be arriving in the Kornati Islands. While summer lasts, life in this little paradise will move at a faster pace. In sharing this exceptional archipelago, Sebastien is passing on his passion for the Adriatic Sea, the sea where he has decided to drop anchor.